Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the mixed, premium, and public video discussion, and also Fire Island and beyond. Good morning, everyone. Having one complete video discussion just to cover everything with this storm, which is going to have significant impacts. And while we're starting to see precipitation now for the morning rush hour, the real impact is going to be the evening rush hour with very poor visibility, very strong winds. Major coastal flooding on the coast, so some roads are going to be washed out along the coast, especially around Long Island, and just horrible driving conditions. So if you have plans this afternoon, I would strongly suggest to be done with them by 2 p.m. because after 2 p.m., conditions are going to go downhill in a very fast pace. Let's look at the current observations. Currently, we have temperatures ranging from the upper 20s to lower 30s over the far northern interior, lower to mid 30s in the New York City metro, and mid 30s to lower 40s in the Philadelphia metro and along the New Jersey coast. This is the warmest we're going to be all day. Precipitation is already moving through the region. Temperatures have pretty much stabilized, and they really won't move all that much within a degree here and there through the morning hours. By the time we get to the afternoon and evening, when this precipitation changing over to snow becomes very heavy, these temperatures are going to fall off very, very impressively into the lower to mid 30s along the coast and upper 20s to lower 30s over the interior. This is not a very cold storm here, but the temperatures are going to just be just cold enough to support that snow accumulation. When we currently look at the mid-levels, some very interesting evolutions are starting to take shape here. This is at 925 millibars. And we are already starting to see the 925 millibar low take shape here. And it's stronger now. This is just a new development at 5:30 a.m. The mid-level 925 millibar temperature low is stronger than the interior. So we're starting to see the coastal low already start to take control. Now what we want to see in terms of the influence on the mid-level temperatures is to see these winds start to back to the northeast, okay? So they're currently from the east. This is a warm wind coming off the Atlantic. Not much in the way of warm air transport here, okay? But out down here over southern New Jersey, clearly you have pretty strong warm air transport, which is why you're going to start off as rain, maybe mixed with a little snow down here. Meanwhile, over here, you pretty much have snow, but not really accumulating because it's too light and it really can't overwhelm the current warm boundary layer. So what we want to see are these winds starting to back to the northeast as this low pressure system takes control, and that will start to transport colder air rather than warmer air into the region. Now that's at 925 millibars. At 850 millibars, we still are starting to get the development of our secondary low. It's right about here, but it's not really established just yet. So we still have a warm air transport coming in off the Atlantic. Once this 850 millibar low takes shape and takes control, that puts the end to the warm air transport, which means that your rain snow line stops moving to the north. And so as a result, you start to establish that rain snow line. I think it's going to stop somewhere around, just around the northern Delaware through southwestern New Jersey and cutting through Ocean County and staying south, right? Staying south of Long Island. And as a result, all locations below that, above that line will remain snow. Now, again, because it's not falling heavy through the morning, the boundary layer temperatures will support snow that's in the air, but won't actually accumulate on the ground yet. So that's what we're seeing at the mid-levels. Now, here is why I'm going with the more impressive snowfall than the last storm. The last storm, if you remember, I made the argument that most locations are going to be too warm to have snow accumulation. Temperatures are going to be around 36 degrees, and the snow is going to be in the air. But for most locations, of course, except for my own hometown, this snow won't accumulate. Here is the key difference here. Last time, we didn't really have strong convective environment. We had marginal cold air at the mid-levels, around 0, -1 degrees Celsius, but not anything that was powerful, that you could really draw down. So it's clearly an elevation-based snowfall event. In this case, we start off at the low-level lapse rate, and I'm noticing the low-level lapse rate off the Atlantic is starting to really build. Once you get over 5 degrees Celsius, that's pretty convective for this time of year. But even more impressive, this is a cold air loft that is coming in towards the region as our storm starts to develop. And you're talking about minus 5, 6, 6.5, 7. That's a pretty strong lapse rate. And it gets even more impressive at the mid-levels already. This is what's coming into the region. About 8 degrees Celsius lapse rate. Now, what that means is that air is able to rapidly rise. And when you have air that's able to rapidly rise, that cools the atmosphere and it cools the surface. And that's why when you see this type, this is the type you need strong, very strong adiabatic cooling. Okay, you need very strong dynamic cooling in order to support a heavy snowfall in the current boundary layer or surface conditions. Okay, if I wasn't seeing this, I'd be like going, okay, the coast will see a rain snow mix, maybe a couple inches, that's about it. But when I saw this, when I started seeing this in the guidance, and now I'm seeing this in the observations, this is what said, uh-oh, this might be a problem. And that's why I have the forecast I have out. And that's why we're starting to see the model guidance start getting colder and colder. Not so much the European held strength, held course, but especially the NAM. Man, it took a complete flip and is much colder than what it is now. And we're actually going to use the NAM for the discussion going forward. Another thing that really popped out to me, this is mid-level CAPE. Now what this basically is taking the most unstable part of the atmosphere and getting a CAPE value, okay? And what I'm seeing here are these CAPE values popping up, but more importantly, look what's going to be thrown into our region as this coastal low develops. This is some very, very impressive convective air masses that's building off the Atlantic Ocean and heading towards our region. Up again, understand the concept here. This low pressure system will be rapidly intensifying. At the mid-level, you get this convective environment developing, and what this is telling me is what the potential is. The potential here is to have very, very impressive dynamic convective precipitation showing up here. And the observations, which is why I'm starting off first, supports what I'm about to show you in the model guidance. So let's take a look at some of this model guidance. So we're going to use Tropical Tidbits. It's a free website, all right? So if you want to kind of follow along and see what I'm looking at, I'm using the NAM 3K here. And what I'm starting off with is basically this afternoon. And this is what we call frontogenesis at 850 millibars. Now, what this is telling me is that there's very strong mid-level frontogenesis taking shape along the coast. Now, on the NAM guidance, it takes it just off the coast, but we have enough lifting along the coastal plain to support the potential for some dynamic cooling. Now, of course, you don't just look at one level, you look at multiple levels to get an idea of what's happening throughout the entire atmosphere. And so at 700 millibars, a couple key points really stand out here. One, the frontogenesis, again, is focused along the coast. Look how this really starts to amplify this evening, okay? Remember this signature right here, and then when I show you the precipitation forecast on the NAM guidance, you'll see what I mean. Now again, remember, the NAM guidance was the warmest guidance that we had. Okay, it was driving the 850 millibar temperature all the way into, the Hudson River Valley, and it looked like rain, and so everyone was worried, like, oh, we have to drop our snow accumulations down to an inch or less, So remember, this was the warmest guidance. So we're seeing the instability here, and we're seeing the environment set up here, right? Now let's take a look. That's a little bit out of order, I apologize. Okay, here is the 850 millibar temperatures. Now we start off with this morning, okay? And again, southern New Jersey, definitely going to see some rain out of this, a lot of rain. Notice here, as our 850 millibar low develops and our coastal low starts to bomb out, notice the 850 millibar line stalls, and then the environment gets colder. So this is the warmest that we get in the storm at 850 millibars, right about here. Okay, notice Long Island, you are below freezing at 850 millibars, and not just by 1 degree, but by several. here as you head towards the north side of the island. Same thing around Central Jersey, Philadelphia Metro, New York City, and of course the interior. You guys are just going to get walloped with well over a foot of snow. Again, I'm staying with the 6 to 12 inch plus, even in these areas, because there's going to be so much dynamics involved. There's going to be somebody in this forecast area over the interior that's going to be like, where's my snow? I'm just getting flurries. Okay, so that's why the range is still anywhere. Someone can easily have 6 inches in one town and 24 inches in the next town in this type of convective environment. Okay, so that's the type of storm that we are dealing with here. All right, that's for the interior and along the coast, maybe not 2 feet, but someone's going to see a foot out of this storm based on what I'm seeing here. In terms of the air temperatures, notice again, as this lifting intensifies, here we are in the morning hours. As this lifting intensifies, look how the boundary layer cools. Now again, we're not talking about a tremendously cold air mass here. We're still talking about marginal temperatures, okay? So if you have some pretty good treatment and if you stay on top of the storm, you can prevent a lot of the snow accumulation on your driveway and in your area. But this type of temperature environment, as we move to the evening, temperatures around 32, 35, it's a very heavy, wet, cement-like snow, and because of the high snowfall rate, it will accumulate. So definitely watch out for your power lines and whatnot as this storm evolves. So next, we'll take a look at the actual precipitation event, okay? Now, we'll start out this morning. The initial precipitation environment that is developing right now is basically going to start to fall apart as the new coastal low takes shape. And again, along the New Jersey coast, you'll see, at the start of this, rain. Then it's going to rapidly change over to snow. Look what the NAM does this afternoon. And look at the intensity of this precipitation as it evolves. Now you see this? This is very interesting. Band, 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 band. Band after band of intense snowfall. But remember, in between these bands, you're going to see light snowfall. Okay, and notice how tightly cut off this environment is as this storm really wraps up. So those of you in southeastern Pennsylvania, you might see this rapidly fall off, which is why I have a pretty good steady drop off in the snowfall potential out here, going 3 to 6, 1 to 3, and a pretty steady rate. But right here, this is when we're going to really see our snowfall pick up. And unfortunately, this is going to be in the heart of the rush hour. Now, those of you on Long Island, the island's going to be cut in half between the east end having heavy rain and the west end having heavy snow. But even towards eastern Long Island, the precipitation rapidly changes over to snow and falls very, very heavily. And so as we go on through the evening, this western edge, this comic right here, is going to produce, there's a potential for what we call a deformation zone here, very heavy snowfall marching through when temperatures are at their coldest due to the strong dynamic cooling. And of course, with this storm developing, we're also going to have to deal with very strong winds. Now again, I cannot stress enough, coastal flooding is going to be a major problem, especially on Long Island, but also on the New Jersey coast. There's going to be major beach erosion and major coastal flooding from this storm. Winds are also going to be very strong. Now, this is in knots, so we're talking about 15 to 30 miles per hour throughout the region. Of course, stronger as you head towards the coast. It's going to lead to the potential for power outages. It's also going to reduce visibility to below a mile at times with the heavy snow or heavy mix of snow and rain along the immediate coast as that changeover is taking shape. So if you're driving this evening, do understand your visibility is going to fall below a mile at times. And roads are going to be starting to get snow covered. And if you have a high profile vehicle, like those big trucks, I would not be on the bridge. I would tell you that right now. So this evening's rush hour is just going to be pretty nasty out there. I want to also show you the SKU-T log. This is basically a two-dimensional vertical view of the atmosphere. And as we head towards the evening hours, what we're seeing here in this environment is basically a very convective environment. Now this is around about, let's say, north central New Jersey. I try to get it mid in between. You're seeing the same scenario set up throughout the entire region, whether you're on east end of Long Island or over the interior around the Poconos. this same signature keeps on showing up. And what this is telling me is that we're seeing a very convective environment at the lower levels of the atmosphere, the mid levels of the atmosphere. This is a sign of some pretty impressive mesoscale banding. Okay, so all these signals are showing up. And then finally, if you're really interested in models, well, take a look at the latest HRR guidance. And here is what's showing up this afternoon. That is really lighting up here. And this is falling as all snow on the guidance. Okay, so this is some very impressive snowfall rates developing here with this storm, in a very, very convective storm. Now, again, because of the nature of this storm, there are going to be some winners and there's going to be some losers in terms of where that banding sets up, and kind of detailing that right now. The best potential, and of course we're going to have to now cast this through the storm, looks to be from the western suburbs of Philadelphia on east with this storm. Okay, so those of you around the Poconos, you might miss out if this banding really sets up as it's being shown on the HRR. But again, those of you around northwestern New Jersey, you can get pummeled with up to 2 feet of snow if this actually sets up the way this is, because again, you're colder, higher elevation, so anything that falls is going to stick. And then you're talking about a snowfall rate over 3 inches potentially if this actually bears out. And this is the latest HRR guidance, which updates every hour. So here is the latest radar that we have in place at 5:46 a.m. Again, you're starting to see the initial precipitation shield start to break down. The new one's starting to take shape. This is going to evolve. And don't be fooled if you start seeing this pull east, because what's going to happen is that as this low bombs out, and this feature, this upper level feature, catches up to the coastal low, you're going to see the precipitation shield rapidly grow to the south and west throughout the entire region and just become more and more intense as we move on through the afternoon into the evening hours. So if you're seeing this and saying, hey, the precipitation shield's falling apart, don't be fooled. This is all going to redevelop and rapidly intensify. You're going to see that rain snow line push into the coastal plain initially as we wait for the 850 millibar low to develop. And then as we head towards the late morning hours to around noon, we'll see that rain snow line stall and then start to drop southeast as the cold air filters in, dynamic cooling takes place, and everything evolves. So here is the forecast from NY and JPA Weather. The National Weather Service forecast is starting to move in this direction, but still a bit below what I have, especially on Long Island. But this is what I'm thinking here. First of all, along the coast, yes, snow is going to be an issue, but I cannot stress enough, coastal flooding is going to be a major problem. If you haven't prepared for it already, what were you waiting for? This is going to be bad, so please be prepared. So the coastal flooding is going to be a major concern. You're talking about winds of 15 to 30 miles per hour, gusts over 40 miles per hour, especially right along the coast. Along the south shore of New Jersey, basically from Atlantic City on south, looking at 1 to 3 inches of snow. You're going to be dealing with a lot of rainfall here. And then towards the end of the storm, you're going to be changing over to snow. As you go just a little bit further north and west, and then up the central New Jersey coast, and on the south side of Long Island, 3 to 6 inches of snow. The faster the rain changes over to snow, the more snowfall accumulation you will see. So if it's a rapid changeover, we're talking about 6 inches. If it takes a little bit of time for accumulation, more like 3 inches. And so you're going to see a wide variety of snowfall totals throughout the region as a result. Okay. Now, the yellow areas. This is where the fun will be. And there are going to be very interesting snow gradients throughout this region. Okay, I could certainly see in Scranton 6 inches, and just to the northwest of Scranton or just to the southwest of Scranton, 20 inches of snow. Okay, because of the convective environment of this area here. Okay, this area is where we're going to see some very convective, impressive snowfall. Now, again, for New York City and Philadelphia, warmer boundary layer. And so with that environment being the case, okay, you're going to have some limitation in your snowfall. So I think for most locations, you're going to be in that 6 to 12 inch park, okay? But I cannot rule out some thunder snow, especially in the New York City metro, based on the guidance that I'm seeing this morning. And that continues on through the north side of Long Island as well. Okay, I think that convective environment is really going to start to enhance the snowfall totals here. And the fact that the mid-level temperatures stay below freezing on the north side of Long Island and over Connecticut, I think it's going to definitely at least put you in the 6-inch range, if not higher. Same scenario here for New York City Metro, northwestern New Jersey. You could really be in the jackpot here. If that convective banding sets up over you, colder environment, higher snowfall ratios, pushing around 12 to 1, and this type of environment, you easily could be pushing 16, 18, 24 inches of snow in this environment if you get that convective banding set up. If you start to hear rumble, prepare for 2 feet of snow. That's basically what I could tell you. I could tell you the same thing for portions of Allentown. Lancaster, again, you're going to be in that 6 to 12 inch range for the most part, but I can't rule out that plus issue with the convective banding setting up. This whole storm will really get going after 10 a.m. Worst impacts going to be from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. this evening. The storm leaves from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. from west to east with significant impacts throughout the region. So evening rush hour is going to be rather interesting, I'll tell you that much. And if you have kids, in terms of afternoon school, to be frank, I'd be concerned. Okay, so if you have the option of early dismissal, or you can control that, I would strongly consider that. Okay, let's just put it that way. You don't want to have kids out on a bus, heavy snow, poor visibility, winds at 20 miles per hour, and you're leaving at 3 o'clock. Why? Okay, so that is what we're going to be dealing with this storm. We'll watch it throughout the day. We'll have live coverage throughout the day. Premium live coverage will be starting up about 7, 8 a.m. We'll get that rolling, and we'll see how this storm evolves. That is your forecast discussion for today. As always, stay safe out there.